The bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion hummed with the quiet efficiency that had maintained galactic order for 3 millennia. Fleet Admiral Zektharian observed the routine patrol through the outer rim sectors, his 4 eyes scanning holographic displays that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. The Galactic Empire had conquered 97% of known space, and the remaining 3% consisted of barren worlds and primitive civilizations barely worth the fuel costs of subjugation. Admiral. Communications Officer Vexanali's voice carried the practiced boredom of someone who had monitored silent channels for decades. We're receiving an automated distress beacon from the Kepler sector. Probably another mining accident. Zektharian's tail twitched with mild annoyance. The Kepler sector housed several subjugated species that the Empire barely considered sentient. Bipedal creatures who had only recently discovered fusion power and crude space travel. They called themselves humans, and their pitiful colonies served as little more than resource extraction points for the Empire's endless expansion. "Routed to secondary monitoring," he commanded, returning his attention to more pressing matters. The Emperor's latest conquest directive required his fleet to secure the Andromeda Gateway within the solar cycle. What happened next would be analyzed by Imperial strategists for generations, though none would ever fully comprehend it. Space itself seemed to tear open like fabric, reality bending and twisting as something massive emerged from what the Empire's greatest scientists would later classify as an impossible spatial anomaly. Where there had been empty void now sat a vessel that defied every principle of known physics and military doctrine. The human warship Retribution stretched nearly 4 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a matte black that seemed to absorb light itself. No external weapons were visible, yet every sensor on the Imperial Dreadnought screamed warnings about energy signatures that shouldn't exist. The ship's design followed no recognizable engineering principles. It was sleek where Imperial vessels were bulky, elegant where they were brutish, and radiated a technological sophistication that made the Empire's most advanced dreadnought feel like a stone axe by comparison. "Sir," Tactical Officer Mordith's voice cracked with something the Empire had trained out of its officers centuries ago. Fear. "I'm reading." "I don't understand these readings, sir. The energy output from that vessel exceeds our entire battle group combined, by a factor of 12. Before Zektharian could respond, every screen on the bridge flickered and displayed the same image. A human female. Her species' pale skin marked with scars that spoke of battles beyond Imperial comprehension. Her eyes held a coldness that made veteran soldiers of a dozen campaigns instinctively step back from their stations. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Defense Force." Her voice carried through universal translators with crystal clarity. "You have exactly 60 seconds to explain why Imperial vessels are in human space, threatening human colonies, and why I shouldn't turn this entire sector into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma." The bridge fell into absolute silence. In 3,000 years, no one had spoken to the Galactic Empire with such casual contempt. No one had possessed the capability to make such threats credible. "This is Fleet Admiral Zektharian of His Imperial Majesty's Navy," he managed, drawing upon protocols for first contact that assumed Imperial superiority. "You are in violation of Imperial space. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Chen smiled, and somehow that expression was more terrifying than any battle cry. "Consequences? Let me show you consequences." The Retribution didn't fire weapons in any conventional sense. Instead, space around 3 Imperial escort frigates simply changed. The vessels didn't explode or burn, they ceased to exist, converted to their component atoms in the span of a heartbeat. 9,000 Imperial crew members vanished without even time to scream. "Your empire has been harvesting human colonies for slave labor," Chen continued conversationally, as if she hadn't just demonstrated technology that violated fundamental laws of physics. "Your species considers us primitives, suitable only for manual labor and biological experimentation." This assessment was inaccurate. Zektharian felt his 4 hearts racing as he processed impossible data. According to Imperial records, humans were a Type 2 civilization. They had achieved basic space travel and fusion power, but remained centuries from developing true interstellar capabilities. The ship before him represented technology that surpassed anything in Imperial science fiction. "How?" he whispered. "Did you really think we sent every human to the colonies?" Chen's smile widened. Did you assume that primitive creatures who impressed you enough to enslave weren't capable of learning from their captors? For 50 years, your empire has been harvesting human colonies while the real human civilization watched, learned, and prepared. Another Imperial vessel, a heavy cruiser, attempted to maneuver into firing position. It simply stopped existing. We studied your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses, Chen continued. We reverse-engineered your faster-than-light communications, your energy shields, your quantum computers. Then we improved them, by several orders of magnitude. The truth hit Zektharian like a physical blow. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them to the possibility that their primitive subjects were actually a species capable of technological advancement that occurred in decades rather than millennia. While Imperial science crept forward with bureaucratic slowness, human innovation had exploded exponentially. What do you want? Zektharian asked, his voice barely steady. The immediate cessation of all Imperial activity in human space, Chen replied. The return of all human captives. Reparations for 50 years of slavery and exploitation. And a formal treaty recognizing human sovereignty over our entire territorial claim. The Emperor will never... The Emperor, Chen interrupted, is currently staring at 47 ships identical to this one, positioned in orbit around his homeworld. I suggest you contact him immediately. As Zektharian's communications officer frantically attempted to reach Imperial High Command, Admiral Chen delivered her final message. The galaxy assumed humans were weak because we were peaceful. This was your mistake. We spent centuries learning to coexist with each other before we reached the stars. Your empire spent millennia perfecting the art of domination. She paused, and her expression grew deadly serious. Now you get to learn the difference. The retribution vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only empty space and the smoking wreckage of Imperial certainty. The message was clear. Humanity had graduated from victim to predator, and the galaxy's greatest empire had just discovered what it meant to be prey.